Okay. We're going to expand a little bit on what we talked about in the previous hand. Facing a button open from a solid regular, we have 9876 single suited in the small. Decide to 3-bet to 46 and get called. Similar to what we talked about in the last hand, I think this is a pretty good spot to 3-bet. Our hand's deceptive. It's going to play poorly in a three-way pot, in a three-way single race pot, I should say. So I think that my standard is definitely to 3-bet here. What about you, Eureka? Is there ever a spot that you call here, or do you think that 3-betting here is pretty good?
Yeah, it's much easier basically than the last hand, because this time we have a 9 high rundown, which is much better. There are no, it's without a gap, so pretty good looking rundown. We'll flop strong. And this time we're even up against a more aggressive opponent than the last time, so we can be pretty sure that he will attack the boards that we actually hit strongly.
Right, definitely. So he calls. We flop top pair and an open ender, no, a wrap. Top pair and a wrap on 7-5-3 two-tone. We opt to go for the check raise. Villain bets close to pot. And we do check raise for the full pot. Now, before I go any further, I think that this also is right in line with what we talked about in the last hand. Anything that you're willing to stack off with on these kind of boards, you'd prefer to just get it in on the flop, since our hand is good enough to get in against practically anything, but it's going to be difficult to play on later streets as the board texture changes. You have anything you want to expand on there, Yurik?
Yeah, I think it's pretty important. Like, we have some showdown value with our 7. He's pretty obviously committing himself. Like, whenever I see somebody stepping here pot size, he's not doing it as a bluff. So yeah. We don't have any fold equity anymore, but just range wise, we can be sure that we are like never far behind, basically, like, or very, very few times. And if he just ends up having a pair 2 pair, we are favored against that. If he has a weaker combo hand than ours, maybe he has a 8-6-5 type of hand, and we can actually dominate him pretty hard, and so we definitely want to go for the check raise here. That's the conclusion.
Cool. So normally we don't really show results, but I do want your opinion on what he actually had, because he decides to bet call. Now, what do you think about his bet call and his sizing? I mean, would you have taken a different line? Like, I mean, maybe checked back the flop and played a turn in a river with his hand, or what do you think about his hand overall?
It's pretty borderline, I would say. I don't think it's bad, because he can expect me to fold a decent amount of the time. Maybe I'm folding even pair aces here, so he has some merits to get me to fold. It's very unlikely that I do have 6-4 or any other hand that's like having him in really bad shape. So I can see him doing it, like, for a good reason. He has a gut shot and a bottom pair to go as well. So if he had the bare pocket kings, I wouldn't like it. But having some secondary equity helps some. In cases he is behind.
Right.
So, and by betting pot size, he's showing that he's committed, that we don't have any fold equity on check raising like a bare flush draw or something. So he's doing like a good job by guaranteeing his equity. So I'm fine with his play, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that without the gutter, this would be pretty bad.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into this more in other hands, but I'm just curious if you could touch on it just for a moment about his call preflop with the kings. I mean, and I think this is one of the tougher spots that I see my students run into, is also like how to play kings in this kind of situation. Like, what do you think? Do you think that 4-betting would be better, or do you normally peel with these kinds of hands?
It's really player dependent,
okay.
And it can play in both ways. Against somebody with a really wide 3-betting range, like let's say 15% or more, I can see us 4-betting just for value. Again, but against like more reasonable ranges that are within the 10% range, it gets kind of tough, because it has enough aces in it that we are far behind when stacking off. And the range also overall is much smoother and stronger, so the villain will be able in the 4-bet pots to flop strong often enough, and our hand doesn't have a lot of potential to flop strong, actually.
Right.
So I would only 4-bet against some players, and against others like that you really have problems playing against, and they have a tight, strongish range. I could even see myself folding here sometimes.
Yeah.
Mostly out of position. Like out of position, it becomes much harder to play it, but even in position, like having a suit here definitely helps. Having the 6-3 connect and it helps. But whenever your kings get a notch weaker, so let's say you're rainbow or you have no connectivity at all,
Yeah.
then I can definitely advocate a fold.
Yeah, I would actually 100% agree with that. I mean, unless you are confident that you can make money the times that you don't flop something, this is like got to be a fold. Because King 6 3 single suited is just a hand that doesn't flop good very often. So your money's definitely not going to come from just like flopping sets and flopping straights. It's got to come from bluffing successfully when check two or bluff raising, just against straightforward opponents, like you said.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good stuff. Let's move on.
Yo.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Casino Crime here. Now, if you like this video and you want more, then go ahead and click the subscribe button below right now. And if you want to join me for more of my 6 max success secrets and free video tutorials, just click the link to the right. See you inside the trainings. Good luck.